Okay, good morning. Good morning. Okay. All right, just some housekeeping matters pertaining to the quiz about tutorials. And today we're going to look at strategies and actions. I'll put off the looking at the financial ratio analysis either to be next week or week after. So the quiz, as I said last week, we have deferred the quiz because of the bad weather the week before. So instead of doing it last week, we are going to do the quiz today, and I set it up. If you go online, for those who did, you would realize it's open. You can see it, but it's not going to be active until 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock till a minute to 12 tonight. So you have the whole day that you can go on to do it. Right? As I said, if you know you have an unreliable internet that drops out all the time, it's better for you to find one that is stable or get on a UV computer. But because once you're in it, you can't go back in. Right? Once you're in it, it will say you had one attempt, and there's only one attempt you have. It says, I repeat, if you know you have an unstable internet home, it's best to do it here, and there's only one attempt. Right? If for some reason you still had a technical issue, you need to just contact me and let me know at some point during the day. Send me an email. So as I said, it's going to be open from 10, and it's going to be up until 1 minute to 12 tonight. And as I said, it's going to cover all of those topics from week one, the technical stuff that we mentioned last week. So I'm sure you would have been, I don't think today is the time for you to be preparing for it. So it's testing your knowledge and understanding. So you need to know the concepts well. It's not an essay, so you need to know the concepts well. You can't bluff the concepts. So the way they are, I said it's mainly multiple choice, maybe a few yes or no answers, but mainly multiple choice. So it's designed to test your knowledge of the major concepts, as we said last week, competitive advantage, IFE, EFE, and those things. Now, the second thing is the tutorials. I had mentioned to you to get into groups, so by week after, we are going to be looking at some cases, pretty comprehensive cases. And so I will begin those week after. So I want you to do those in groups. And those cases are intended for you to use all of your knowledge, because by next week, we would have covered about 85% of what is required for you to do in the exam, all the new concepts. Once we go into implementation, it is nothing new we are teaching. So as I said, by next week, we would have covered nearly 85% to 90% of all the materials or the new stuff you really need to know for this particular course. And the cases are for you then to take all of this knowledge and understanding you have of the concepts and apply it in a comprehensive case. So the cases would require you to do the IFE, EFE, CPM, the SWOT analysis, five forces analysis, and all like the strategies we are going to deal with today. Again, you have to incorporate these strategies, because these strategies will come in the exam in some form, not asking you what they are, but you have to utilize them in analysis, in analyzing questions and interpreting questions. Right? You have to really repeat. You wouldn't get an exam question that asks you what are the five generic strategies, what are intensive strategies, you don't get those questions. It is for you to apply those concepts as you get your questions. So please, I'll put up an email today, but get yourselves into groups that would be able to do these cases that I have uploaded. And the cases, some could be about 20, 25 pages. So they will have market data. So all we are doing, what you will have to do with the cases, they will have market data, environmental data. So you have to do your pest analysis, SWOT analysis. It will have financial data, a lot of financial data. You have to do your ratios, calculate your ratios and interpret your ratios and recommend strategies to be implemented. So we're really getting into the working stage. And so I would assume by next week the foundation would have been built and you're quite knowledgeable. Because as I said, if by next week you're still struggling with basic concepts, you're going to have a lot of challenges coming into the end of the course, because we're just applying from now. So I hope you would have been keeping ahead of the concepts and doing your reading. Now, the other thing that I'm concerned about, I'm very, very concerned. It is clear to me, because I do all of the tutorials. In past, we had tutors doing them. But it is clear to me there is a significant percentage of students that are doing no kind of tutorial work. We have tutorial assignments every week. So it is clear to me that there are some students who have determined they are not going to do any tutorial work. So I am asking whether they're going to do it, because this tutorial assignments, these are intended for you to get familiar with understanding the concepts. But there's too high a percentage of students that are just coming to class and they haven't done any work. So it is quite unfortunate. So I'm urging you, if you are one of those persons who would not have been preparing anything, you just come to tours and sit down and take notes, you're just wasting your time. And I'm serious, it's better for you to stay home and read than to come to tutorial not doing anything or not preparing anything. And because the tutorials are designed for me to test your knowledge and understanding of the concepts, I have put the essays so that I can give you some help and some guidance on how to answer a strategy essay. But if you do not do any kind of tutorial assignments, you're really disadvantaging yourself in a very, very significant way. And I want to repeat, this course is not a course where you just read for the exam and pass. And I think some people I'm convinced there are a number of students who don't believe me. I'm convinced there are a number of students who believe, man, he talking foolishness. I can just read the text and get past the exam. So if you believe you don't have to do the assignments, you don't have to get involved in discussions, and you're going to wait till the last minute to read the text, well, you try it and we'll see what happens at the end of the semester. Right? I think you're taking a very high risk strategy because the exam is structured for application. You will play the role of consultant, analyzing and interpreting stuff. So your understanding of the concepts and being able to use them and apply them will be very, very important in the course. Right? But as I say, from next week or maybe week after, we just get into application, and then what I'll bring an IFE, a sample of an IFE and CPM, and we'll just put it on the board, and then we'll analyze that. Then we'll bring there's some other tools actually but maybe week after we might introduce them, some matrices that are generally, one of them will come in the exam. And there are tools that you need to use to apply in a business context. Right? They're not things that you write an essay on. Yeah? So I don't know if they have copies. There should be copies of the exam in the library. So I urge you to actually look at a copy of the exam in the library. So today, this is one of those very critical topics, looking at competitive strategies that can help a company gain competitive advantage. So before we were looking at tools for analysis, we were looking at tools that would analyze the external environment, tools that would analyze the internal environment. Today, what we are going to do, we're actually going to look at tools that, strategies that companies could actually implement to help them gain a competitive advantage. So this lecture particularly is going to be very, very critical in moving forward. So again, as I suggested before, it is always wise to read ahead, so that those students who would have read ahead at least have some idea, good morning, of the concepts that we're going to deal with. So we can say for small companies, you can have, and going back to your first year principles and other courses you would have done in marketing, you could have strategies at the company level, functional strategies and operational strategies. So these strategies, which are called the alternative to Porter's 5 generic strategies, these strategies are called the vertical integration strategies. And they said for those students, most of you would have done marketing, these are concepts you should know. So you could have forward integration, you could have backward integration, and you could have horizontal integration. And so forward integration means you want to take control of distribution, and backward integration, take control of supply, and horizontal, you take control of a competitor. So, To understand these strategies, we need then to go right back. Because there's a context for these strategies that are very critical as we lay the foundation. One, we know right away a business operates in a competitive environment. Governments operate in environments they are competing with other countries. So we know you do a PESTLE to analyze the environment, and we know we do a SWOT to look at opportunities, threats, strengths, and weaknesses. And we know there's a 5 forces analysis that looks at some competitive forces out there and the supplier, bargaining power of the supplier, bargaining power of the buyer, etc. So folks, when we look at these competitive strategies, we can integrate them into these other concepts we dealt with. So we know that what I wrote on the board is your value chain. So straight away, when we talk about backward integration is aligned to which aspect of the value chain? The inbound logistics. And inbound logistics is your support source of supplies. So we can say, once we say it's a source of supplies, it means for us then to be able to deal with this concept of backward integration in a real life context. We know that backward integration in a real sense deals with how a company adopts strategies to control its supply sources, which relates to value chain analysis. Everybody with me? And we say once we start to talk then about supply sources, what other tool is critical that we need to understand that is aligned here? What other tool is aligned here when we talk about supply sources? Correct. Porter's 5 forces, because Porter's 5 forces talks about the bargaining power of the supplier. So folks, this is how we're going to integrate it. The only way I will be able to make a decision to backward integrate, or one of the main ways I can make a decision to backward integrate, is to do a 5 forces analysis of my supplier power. Everybody with me? Because it's only when I understand the bargaining power of the supplier will I be able to determine whether I need to make a decision to take over my supplier or not. You with me? So if my supplier bargaining power is high and is impacting, if my supplier's bargaining power is high, what is it going to impact on? Yeah, what is it going to impact on? My supplier's bargaining power is high. What will it impact on in terms of my business? The cost of my supplies. And if it impacts on the cost of my supplies and pushes them up, what will it impact on? Not profit yet, you're going too fast. No, not revenue. Not value chain. If it impacts on the cost of my supplies, what next would it impact on? Not inventory. The product. Inventory comes at the end of a production process. It would impact on my manufacturing process or my operations. Because it would cost me more in terms of my operations or manufacturing my goods and services. So folks, don't get too far to the end. You see, in this course, you need to follow these logical processes. My supply costs are high, and because my supply costs are high, it means that when I buy my supplies, they're going to be higher, assume higher than my competitor. So it means that when I get to operations, it's going to push my operations costs up. And if I'm manufacturing, it's going to push my manufacturing costs high. So if it pushes my manufacturing costs in the air, what is going to happen then down the road? You get into profits too fast. It pushes my manufacturing costs high. It is going to impact on the price I am able to offer to customer, meaning the product or service I offer will be higher than my competitor. So if the price is higher than my competitor, it means then I would have less buyers. Meaning that what would be low then? You're getting to profit too fast. Not revenue. Sales. You understand? Sales are not revenue. Sales are sales. Revenues are the things you get from sales. You all are not wrong, but you're going too fast to the end. You see, you're not wrong. So you need to fill in the gaps in the exam. So the cost of supplies are high, which increase my operations and manufacturing costs, which increase the cost of my product or service, which increase the cost I will give to my customers. And if I'm paying higher costs, the customer is paying higher costs for my goods or services than the competitor, my sales will be lower. And if my sales are lower, it follows then that my revenues are lower. And then if my revenues are lower and I do not do something, it's still something before the profits. If my revenues are lower, what impacts on my profit? Management of my costs. But it's quite possible that my revenues don't grow, but because I try to control and push down my costs, I can still keep my profits constant. And I like what you said, management of other costs, because we know costs are separated then into fixed costs and variable costs. And when you look at the value chain, where are you most likely to find your fixed costs? In the secondary value chain. Because what are you going to find in the secondary value chain? Your full-time staff, research and development, the admin people, and your variable costs are likely to be found in operations, where production levels could be up and down. So folks, you see what I'm saying? So when we say a backward integration strategy, it only makes sense if we understand it's related to supplier bargaining power. Because if the supplier bargaining power is low, do I have to worry about backward integration, buying out my supplier? No. You're already doing it and you're doing it well. I don't want to take on that additional burden of manufacturing my supplies. So if it is low, I don't have a problem. If it is getting too high, I take action to buy you out. Could be hostile takeover. Everybody with me? No, I put the business model to show you then it also is aligned to business model. How is it aligned to business model? How is that decision aligned to business model? When I determine to backward integrate. Excellent. To backward integrate is a decision to manage my costs. And we know value chain analysis is about managing costs. And managing the costs how? How are you managing the costs? What kind of actions do you take in trying to identify costs? When we do the cost analysis. When we do the cost analysis, how do we try to itemize costs? Sorry? By using strategic cost analysis, which means that that the cost, well, eventually, but when you do strategic cost analysis, it means you're analyzing your costs unit by unit, right? Compared to your competitor. So you don't just look at overall cost, you look at cost unit for unit. And it gets to her point then. So why do you look at it unit by unit? Yes, your point comes now. Because you want to identify the cost drivers that it might be 2, 3, or 4 units out of 1,000 units that are pushing your costs up in the air. And once you identify the cost drivers, you're then able to identify where your cost advantages are and where your cost disadvantages are. Excellent. So we are saying, even in doing backward integration, it's an attempt to control costs, which means you're fulfilling the cost condition in the business model. And once you can keep the cost down, you are then fulfilling the revenue and profit conditions of the business model. Forward integration, similar. And forward integration, you want to take control of your distributors. And once you take control of your distributors, it means, again, you want to keep costs down. And not only keep costs down, you also want to, what is important when you take control of distribution? Sorry? Well, it could, but not necessarily. Why do I want to, what is important about my distribution in a practical sense? To get the goods out there, but also not only get the goods out there, but but she said to get it out there, But what's the other thing that is not only getting it out there in a timely manner? It means you have to be reliable. I can get it there, but it's always late. And when you're talking about competition, it means that you have to be timely and make sure it gets there also in the proper quality, that the goods are not damaged. And in horizontal integration means I want to take control of a competitor or merge. And why would you want to take control of a competitor? Sorry? I want to control the market. They might have a lot of market share and not running the company well, and I might want to take control to expand my market share. Right? And that might be a reasonable decision that I might want to make, take control of my competitor. So this is just some summaries of what you do: gain control of distributors, suppliers, competitors, and that's forward integration, taking control of distribution. And that's backward integration, taking control of suppliers, and the horizontal integration confirms competitors. And it says what? Gain monopolistic characteristics. I want to take control, as you said, of the market, and economies of scale. And everybody should read up again on the benefits. What's the benefit? What are the benefits of economies of scale? That's it. It means that I can buy in bigger numbers, produce in bigger numbers, and keep my costs down. So which value chain activity would be related to that? Which value chain activity be related to this issue of economies of scale? Could be inbound logistics, could be strategic cost analysis, unit by unit. Because in economies of scale, I need to monitor my unit costs to really find out, am I really benefiting from the economies of scale? You understand what I'm saying? You cannot assume the economies of scale. You need to be monitoring your unit costs constantly. And as I said, the final line says, this company might have an excellent product. It has substantial market share, but being very improperly run. Right? So what analysis could help us here in identifying and helping us to make this choice? What analysis or tool can help us in making a choice? Which competitor might be best to take over? Excellent. Who said that? Competitive profile matrix. Why? Excellent. Because what it does, it establishes the industry success factors, but it also looks at a comparison of the key competitors in the industry. I repeat, what it does, it has a set of industry factors which could involve profitability, management capability, service quality, but it also compares your company with your major competitors. So when I make those comparisons, I'm able then to, what did the CPM look at? How do we do? Which one? Right, so we're saying the CPM. Remember we said we are going to do horizontal integration, which is taking over a competitor. We are saying the last line here says, the company might be faltering due to lack of managerial expertise and need a particular resource. Right? So it could be your company that is faltering, that you have a weakness that the competitor might have, or the competitor might have a strength in one area, as I said, market share. It might have a good product, but they're not managing it well. So when we do the CPM, remember the CPM has critical success factors, which come from what? The critical success factors come from what? Where do you get the critical success factors? Sorry? Which audit will give you the critical success factors? They derive from something. Something we did earlier semester. Not pestle. The strengths and weaknesses, folks. It comes from the strengths and weaknesses, the critical success factors, which would be management capability, quality of product, market share, quality of staff. And then you take the companies, you have your main competitors that you're making comparisons against these criteria. So we're saying when you make these comparisons, you might realize the company has a strength where I have a weakness. So where they have a strength or critical strengths where I have weaknesses, if I can purchase and take over this company, I can enhance my company's overall performance and profitability. And if it is market share, as you said, automatically once I take them over, I can gain access to market share. And that's what it talks about, monopolistic gains. I can expand my market almost immediately. And again, I can benefit. My company can benefit from it. Right? So as you said now, so your CPM gives you the information that can help you to make a decision about horizontal integration. So I'm saying under exam conditions, this is the kind of just what we did are what is expected of you under exam conditions. To know the linkages and the concepts and to integrate these linkages and concepts within your answer. Then we have intensive strategies. Again, these are not new for students of marketing, whether principal, the introduction, or the marketing management. You also would have done these intensive strategies, which are market penetration, market development, and product development. So I'll go through them quickly. And we say here, we do these strategies to improve the competitive position with existing products, right? To improve the competitive position with existing products. So folks, anytime you see something like this, you need to refer back to the whole concept of competitive advantage and sustainable competitive advantage. Right? And we said a company gains a competitive advantage right in the back. Guy here, look. You gain a competitive advantage when you, yes. Next to you. You gain a competitive advantage when you, lady in black and yellow. Anybody, you gain a competitive advantage when you, that you're able to, you have distinctive competencies and you are able to do it much better or perform better than your competitors. And as I said, when you have a distinctive competence, in itself suggests you can do it better than your competitors. It's something unique that you have. And we said there are a particular set of assets that are found under the RBV model, which would give you this distinctive competence and a competitive advantage. These internal resources, they're called proprietary assets. That's excellent. Very, very excellent. Very good. And proprietary assets can be identified as patents, copyrights, trademarks. They're not tangible things, but by law, they give you an advantage that helps to support your brand and your brand image and your brand reputation. That's why they're so powerful, and as you said, they're part of distinctive competencies. You cannot copy them easily. You can try to steal the concepts, but we will put you in court. So market penetration means I am in an existing market in a geographical location. So if I'm in St. Lucia, I control Castries. And another company controls Vieux-Fort. Sorry? Vieux-Fort. Thank you, please. I'll be corrected. So you move from Vieux-Fort, I control Vieux-Fort, and I'm saying, you know something? I want now to go and capture 50% of Castries. I'm trying to penetrate the market. Why is it still penetration? Because it is still in St. Lucia. So I'm penetrating the St. Lucia market. I'm just extending market share. So if I go up Grosley, I know St. Lucia, you know. You think because you live there? I know St. Lucia too. Huh? And I sure I was going to St. Lucia before you were born. I mean that one? And I know the pitons well too. Man, yes, yes. Beautiful place, really beautiful place. So folks, so that is market penetration. It is within the geographical location and just extending market share to different regions in their country. If I go then to market, well, let's look at market development and then I'll go, yes, market development. So it says presents products and services to new geographical locations. So I go to another island, we call it CARICOM or the Caribbean, but they're still legally independent units. So I move from St. Lucia and I go to St. Vincent. I'm doing market development. I never operated in St. Vincent before. I'm now going into market development. The focus is on developing a new market. And that's what it is saying there. New channels of distribution, successful at what it does, untapped and saturated markets, right? Untapped and saturated markets. So folks, what would help you in understanding this concept here, and for those who will listen to the video, it's if you think about the product life cycle or the cycle of growth of your market. So there is a cycle for markets. Markets develop and some markets die. Some products are developed and products die after a while. Some products have a lot of durability over time, but some products just die. Some markets die. So what it is talking about untapped or unsaturated markets. You could have a saturated market. So when a market is saturated, there's an assumption. What is the assumption about a saturated market? Many, many players. So if I tell you to use the five forces model to explain what is happening, what language then would you use? There is, yes. Is it suppliers? Competitors. There is intense rivalry among competing firms. Many, many, many people competing with all kind of varieties of the same product. And once it is saturated, what happens to a price? What happens to price? Elastic or inelastic? Is it elastic or inelastic? Elastic meaning, you said inelastic. Right. Inelastic meaning, so that's where, so give me an example of the kind of pricing you hear on the media when it's inelastic. What kind of pricing would you hear? $4.99, $4.98, $4.97. People deal with cents. Right. Right. That's what you see, $14.99, $14.98, $14.95. People play with cents because margins are very, very narrow. So to make profitability, what would you have to do then? You're looking for numbers. If you can get volume. So in that sense, what would you do then? You can acquire a competitor or you can. I'm not wasting my time in this market. It's too intense. I'm going to leave St. Lucia and I'm now going to Grenada. You understand? Less competition. It is fresh. My product is good. My service is excellent. And I'm sure I will have a first mover advantage. Again, a marketing concept. I will have first mover advantage that people will be fresh about my product until other people follow because they will follow in the competitive environment. Right? Excess production capacity that occurs where in the value chain? In the Production capacity will be found where in the value chain? Operations, correct. And then you have product development, improving present products and services, and developing new product services. So I want somebody to look at this, right? And tell me, make an alignment to value chain analysis or value chain management. Look at this and make an alignment to value chain management. Make an alignment to value chain management. Somebody quickly. Nobody sees it yet? What happens in the secondary value chain? Research and development. So the only way you're going to be able to develop new products is if you have a focus on research and development. If you don't have a focus on research and development, you will not innovate or bring any new products. That's the linkage. So folks, as I told one of my tutors yesterday, don't forget, we are teaching strategy in a linear form. But this is really a business with different business units happening simultaneously. That you have a CEO, you have managers, you have departmental heads. So even though it looks linear, value chain in real life is not linear. Because production operates the same time as HR, at the same time as supplies, or you call it logistics now, the same time as distribution. All of these things are happening simultaneously. You understand? You don't do production and then sell. So as production is always going on, sales are always going on, research and development always going on, HR and admin always going on. Buying supplies is a continuous process. Accounting is a continuous process. So in real life, don't think about these concepts as linear. They're actually all integrated and operating simultaneously. Everybody understands the point I'm making? So if you stop thinking linear, you'll be able to get these linkages a lot better. And this is the point, again, the graph, and folks, this is a very important graph. Products in the maturity stage of life cycle. So product life cycle is that a product has a fast growth stage, then it begins to plateau, and once it gets to the stage of maturity, you need to make a decision. What am I going to do? I need to innovate to make sure I bring freshness to the market. When we go to Porter's 5 competitive strategies, we will then see there are certain strategies that you can use to, they call it refreshing a product. For example, the differentiation strategies that are important. So I hope you were able to spend some time refreshing your knowledge of the 5 competitive strategies. And the last point here, as we said, strong research and development capabilities. So I can plug this then into the CPM to say a critical success factor for this particular company and its competitors is strong research and development, bringing new and innovative products to market. And if it is a critical success factor, once I'm able to focus on it, it helps me to gain those distinctive competencies and eventually a competitive advantage. So the other strategies that are critical would be what we call the diversification strategies. And there are 2 types, the related and unrelated. And I will give you an example of them. And it relates to value chain. And I said before, folks, no student of business strategy and policy will do well unless you understand the concept of value chain analysis exceptionally well. Because it is integrated to so many things. So when we look at the definitions for these things, you will see what I'm talking about. So we are saying related diversification is when their value chains possess competitively valuable cross-business strategic fits. Right? Meaning, I can easily, when I diversify, I can easily transition to an area that is similar to the competencies I utilize in my existing value chain. And unrelated, it means there are dissimilar activities, meaning I am moving into something that I really don't have the competencies for, or my production and operations processes are not familiar with. Anybody can give me some examples?
Related is if you're using the same, basically if you're using the same input switch and going to do with inbound logistics. And you got the same capital plan, which is your process.
Right.
Using the same, like you get slight tweak, but you get a different output.
Right.
Unrelated would be if using.
But give us a practical, for example, I am accustomed to making tables and chairs. My company specializes in making tables and chairs. For years and years, I have not gone into making beds. You understand? I am accustomed to making tables and chairs. I have not gone into beds. That's related diversification. You understand? I am accustomed to making bicycles. I have not gone to manufacturing motorcycles. I'm accustomed to making bicycles. I have not gone into motorcycle manufacturing. You understand? So there are similar processes, similar competencies, and you have to upgrade certain areas. Like computers. I am accustomed to making the desktop computer, but I've now gone into making laptops. And I've now gone into making tablets. That's diversification. So I will not have to make substantial changes in my value chain processes. I don't have to adopt a whole set of new competencies to do it well. But my production processes and competencies are aligned to these particular areas. But I'm accustomed to making tables and chairs, and I've now gone into manufacturing fridges. Totally different. As it says here, the value chain processes across strategic fits. And the second one, no competitively valuable cross-business relationships. And the cross-business relationships are the critical words. That the business activities must be similar if it is related diversification, right? So both can be utilized. Which one is more high risk? Unrelated, because you're going into a new area of competence, right? And involves a lot of research and development. But business, the higher you know the financial management term, the higher the risk, the higher the returns. So what would make a decision for a company to move into unrelated? What factors that we discussed this morning might cause a business to move into unrelated diversification? But what factors might cause you to go into unrelated? Too many players. The market is becoming saturated, correct? It's becoming so saturated. Look, let me move now. I need to move into something new and take my chances in something new. And these are just further discussions on it, how to capitalize, transferring competitively valuable expertise, right? And that's where it's related. You already have the expertise, and you can do that in the diversified product that you're creating. Common use of well-known brand name, cross-business collaboration. So I set up this new business. Right? I'm an expert in making beds. I'm now going into specialized, unique, antique furniture. I still have some competencies in terms of furniture construction that I could actually utilize in my new diversified business. And let's say I can get an unrelated one, right? Capitalizing on a portfolio of businesses that are capable of delivering excellent financial performance. So what it is part now of diversification of your business. You're trying to diversify to make sure that you don't have all, as we put it, all of your eggs in one basket. And the first point again could be the company could actually purchase. You don't have to start from new. I look for a business, and in fact, most big businesses across the world do this. They don't really develop and innovate ideas. They look for successful businesses or with a lot of potential and just buy them out. That's what they do. They just buy. They have the asset base and the cash base, and they just go around the world buying profitable businesses or buying successful businesses, and they expand and diversify their portfolios into every area And that's really how a lot of Caribbean big businesses, like Massey is a classic case, right? Massey didn't get into no diversification and research and development. They bought the expertise, they bought a company. So whether it is in an insurance and travel agency, supermarket business, they just buy a business and straight away, as it is saying here, you're able to diversify your business portfolio. Which tool in marketing looks at accounting for a whole diverse body of different companies and divisions? What tool you would have discussed in marketing would have discussed or tried to document the position of a whole diverse portfolio of businesses? You would have done it in marketing. It begins with B. Deals with the BCG, which means the Boston Consulting Growth Matrix, which looks at the cow, the cash cow, stars, the dogs, and the, well, you all know it. You see, I thought I'd tell you all just need to refresh your memory, you know. I just give you a little jar. You all know this stuff. You know, I'm confident you all know this stuff. Yeah, you all know this stuff. It's just to take out your old books and just refresh your memory, right? So I just put it, and you all know the star and the cow and the dog and everything. The sheep and the cat. Yeah. So just refresh your memories. Defensive retrenchment. A defensive retrenchment, divestiture, liquidation, which means that retrenchment means that I reduce my staff in numbers. You don't get rid of people, you reduce staff in numbers. That's the better language. That's the union language. You get rid of workers, or you get rid of the poor black man. Right? You know, you just reduce the cost, the variable cost, you know. Divestiture means that part of my company is just a burden. So what would help me to make that decision to divest? Let me see how you're thinking. What would help me to make a decision to divest a section of my company? When I look at the cost, and how do I look at costs? Strategic cost analysis, value chain analysis. I've identified the drivers. You're all on the ball. You're all getting on the ball now. You're all getting on the ball. You see the linkages, folks? I can only make a divestment decision when I've identified this company has too much of a high cost structure, and I didn't do it by guess. We have done strategic cost analysis with the other competitors, and we realize that there are significant cost drivers that have our cost spiraling so high above our competitors, it doesn't make any sense to try to fix it. It is just best to get rid of it. You see the linkage now to value chain, how important it is. You understand what I'm saying? It's cost analysis, unit by unit analysis. Look for cost drivers. Look for your cost advantages. And if I have too many cost disadvantages, buddy, let me leave this business now. Let me get rid of it before it sinks my whole business. Liquidation means that and the accountants would know this, I had enough of this business. Before I go bankrupt, just let me do like Donald Trump. Can you imagine Donald Trump, President of the United States? Wow. Folks, you know what is more sad for me? You know what is more sad for me? The evangelicals are finding excuses for him for the derogatory things he have done to women. You imagine evangelicals, people in church. You imagine? You imagine? I want them. CNN said this morning, he said it is better for him to touch one than to have one. That's what they quote an evangelical say as a pastor. It's better for him to touch one than to have one. I suppose hitting at gays and lesbians. That man is so horrible, so offensive. Sorry? Who? No. I'm not saying for all, but I'm talking about him. I'm saying for him. That for him to be getting so much support from both men and women. Come on, man. Nah, just horrible. Just horrible. Huh? Wow. Sparking, man, dangerous. Folks, Folks, the these concepts, I repeat, are critical to this course, right? They are going to be integrated. These concepts we dealt with, these strategies to give you competitive advantage, they are going to be integrated through your exam. In other words, there's not a question you will get them in. As you answer questions, the questions will call on you to refer to one or either. It might call on you to look at divestiture, diversification strategies, integration strategies, market development. It depends on what the question asks. You bring your tools out of your hat, you see? So it's not a one thing you need to know. You need to know all of them. Now, this is the last topic we will deal with for today, and it's a very important topic, one of the most critical topics, Porter's 5 generic competitive strategies. And again, these will come in the exam in some form. So we'll take our break. It's just about 4 minutes after 9. We'll take our break, go and stretch your legs, I'll get some water, and then when we come back, we will again look at these 5 generic competitive strategies.